Welcome to Backbone Unlimited. My name is Matt Hartsky. In this episode, we're breaking down one of the biggest advantages a Western mule deer hunter can get, and that's snow. Most hunters see snow as a burden. It's cold, it's wet, and it makes the work feel harder. But when it comes to finding and killing mature mule deer bucks, snow is one of the greatest gifts you can get. It reveals everything. Fresh snow wipes the mountain clean. Old tracks disappear, new ones stand out like ink on white paper, and the entire landscape becomes a readable map. You're no longer guessing whether a buck moved through yesterday, last week, or 10 minutes ago. You can see exactly where he fed, where he traveled, and where he bedded. And when you learn how to read sign correctly, winter stops being a grind and becomes a system, a clear, tactical way to locate bucks that would stay hidden in dry country. Snow also changes deer behavior. In cold weather, mule deer move less, bed longer, and tighten their world to smaller pockets. Every calorie matters. Feed becomes more concentrated, bedding becomes more predictable, and travel patterns shrink into defined lines. Their world gets smaller. Your opportunity gets bigger. Today, we're breaking down how to use snow to your advantage, how to read timing from tracks and pellets, how to interpret travel patterns, how to understand bedding pockets, and how to move through winter country without blowing deer out. Snow gives you clarity, but the kill comes from interpreting what you see and making the right decision fast. Winter is a short clock game. You can't waste daylight wondering what the sign means. You need to know exactly what to do next. Snow's greatest gift is timing. Without snow, a track in dirt tells you nothing about when a buck passed. In snow, you get a readable timeline. Crisp edges, loose crystals, and sharp toe marks almost always mean recent movement, sometimes within 1 to 3 hours. Rounded edges, glazed surfaces, settled or sagged impressions tell you the track is older. Snow depth matters too. Pellets sitting on top of fresh snow are new. Pellets in a glazed, frozen look are older. Beds leave heat signatures, soft, melted depressions with crisp edges, if the deer was in them recently, or a thin crust of refreeze if they're several hours old. Every piece of sign becomes a clock. When a storm resets the mountain, that clock becomes even more accurate. Anything written after the storm is fresh. Anything buried beneath it, it's irrelevant. The second advantage snow gives you is interpretive power. Tracks aren't just footprints, they're behavior. A straight, purposeful line tells you a buck was traveling. Tight feeding loops, wandering, circling, sidestepping, twisting means he's feeding close to where he's likely bedded. Pause marks, two deep tracks where the buck stopped to look or smell tell you he was entering a bedding pocket or changing terrain or becoming more cautious. Layering tells you sequence. If fresh tracks cross over old ones, the newest line is the direction he moved most recently. If a track crosses over a track that's been lightly dusted with flakes, you know which one came first. The story becomes a timeline, and your job is to figure out where the buck is now, not where he was. Most hunters make the mistake of following tracks directly. That almost always puts you behind the deer, right? Especially in quiet snow where sound travels. Mature bucks spend their lives watching downhill. If you trail them from below, you're inside their danger zone. Instead, you can interpret direction and outflank them, get above the track, stay cross slope or uphill, and move faster than the deer did without stepping on his direct line. Bucks prefer bedding on mid-slope benches, under structure, or on leeward ridges where they can see downhill and smell at the same time. If tracks are angled towards those places, you don't necessarily need to follow. You want to get ahead of him or get into position to intercept, not necessarily pursue. Reading the full picture, your tracks, the poop pellets, the beds, the browse, puts you inside the deer's core. Fresh poop or melted beds and sharply clipped bitter brush are the confirmation that you're in the right pocket. Feeding loops in the snow are one of the best indicators of deer living nearby. In winter, deer feed tight. They don't burn calories wandering. If you see tight loops, fresh browse, and pellets on top of fresh snow, slow down immediately. Get elevation. Glass every timber edge, every pocket, every shadow seam. Big bucks in winter often bed shockingly close to where they feed because conserving energy is everything. Snow also makes glassing dramatically more effective. Mule deer that completely vanish in brown sage and mahogany and rock suddenly stand out against the white. Even a bedded buck looks like a dark smudge or sharp break in texture. Antlers look like black twigs where no twigs should be. Snow highlights contrast like outlines and edges and micro movement. If a head moves against a white backdrop, you're going to see it instantly. The best glassing is done early when low angle light creates shadows and pulls detail out of the terrain. The worst glassing is midday glare on south faces, so shift angles, glass from side slopes, or pick apart timber pockets. Grid everything. Don't assume a basin is empty because it looks clean. Winter bucks tuck tight into structure. The guy who picks apart every seam is the guy who finds them. Cold air changes how your scent travels. Thermals in winter sink hard and fast. If you approach from below, you're going to be much better off with no scents or traveling downhill like water. In the deep cold, thermals don't necessarily switch early either. Air can stay stable for hours. That stability helps you plan but punishes mistakes because a bad wind stays bad all morning. Approaching from that side hill is going to be the best if you're not getting consistent thermals. Drainages are scent funnels, so avoid just walking up them. Cold air is going to pool in bowls and benches, creating dead air instead of dispersing. If your breath drops straight down when you test it, thermals are falling hard. If it hangs slightly and rises weakly, you might be getting the beginning of an uphill pull. Winter wind demands constant checking. Never assume you know what direction wind should be moving. Test it nonstop. Hunt where your scent isn't, not where you hope it won't go. Snow doesn't just show where deer were, it also shapes where they will go. Mule deer naturally gravitate towards low resistance travel routes like wind-scoured ridges or benches with reduced snow load or timber edges where snow is firmer, two tracks and old logging roads, and contour lines where movement is easiest. Deep snow burns calories, so deer instinctively choose paths with less depth and better footing. Those routes become highways. When you find tracks running a consistent contour, especially on a bench or a ridge spine, you've likely found a daily travel pattern. Bucks moving from feed to bed or vice versa almost always prefer predictable terrain lines. Instead of chasing those tracks, get ahead of them and intercept. Snow type matters too. Powder is quieter but slower. Deep powder compresses a buck's world because every step costs energy, which means once you find fresh sign in powder, you're likely very close. Powder reveals detail, the crispiness, the toe spread, and the granulation that help you read timing accurately. Crust is faster but louder. One crack of a crusted step can blow a stalk. Bucks travel further on crust because it conserves energy, so crust days are excellent for intercepting travel routes, but often terrible for sneaking into bedding pockets. Timing matters with the crust. When the sun softens it briefly, you might get a 20 to 40 minute window where it gets a little bit quieter. Use that moment if you're closing distance. When crust tightens again and gets loud, you've got to switch back to intercept strategies. Storms are reset buttons. During a storm, deer are going to hunker down in leeward pockets like benches, broken timber, and protected slopes. They move very little. The moment the storm breaks, they stand, they stretch, they feed, they reshuffle. If a storm clears in the afternoon, you hunt that afternoon. If it clears overnight, you're glassing at first light. All fresh tracks after a storm are relevant. Everything buried beneath is old. Post-storm bucks feed sooner and more aggressively than a lot of hunters expect. Visibility spikes, beds stand out, tracks are obvious. Storm breaks are the best windows of the entire late season. You need to be ready to capitalize on those. Late season hunting in the snow demands preparation. Staying warm without sweating is everything. Winter kills hunters through moisture, not cold. Start cold on a climb. Add insulation only when you stop. Your hands need dexterity and warmth, so thin gloves under mitts. Your boots need space for circulation, not stacked socks. Your optics need a tripod. Your movement needs to be deliberate. Snow changes footing, sound, and timing. Hydration matters even more when you don't feel thirsty. Calories matter because cold burns energy. Winter punishes sloppy systems. If you can stay warm, dry, efficient, and steady, you stay in the game longer than a lot of hunters, and winter rewards the hunter willing to stay. The last piece is decision making. In winter, you have three choices. You stay, you intercept, or you bail. You stay when sign is fresh, crisp tracks, shiny poop, melted beds, tight feeding loops. You intercept when movement has direction and purpose. You bail when sign is old, confusing, scattered, or crusted over. Winter success is about acting quickly on fresh information and abandoning stale information immediately. If you hesitate, you lose daylight. If you overthink, you end up behind the deer. Winter mule deer hunting is a thinking game, and snow gives you all the information you need. The kill comes from what you do next. If you're serious about taking this kind of knowledge deeper, that's exactly why I built Team Backbone. It's more than just a membership, it's a way to sharpen your edge with exclusive tools, strategies, and a tribe of hunters who refuse to quit. Inside, you're going to get 20% off site-wide on all Backbone Unlimited gear, a member-only t-shirt shipped to your door every month, not available anywhere else, full access to the digital content vault of guides, checklists, fitness and backcountry strategies, and mindset training, a private Facebook group with direct access to me and a community of driven hunters who live relentless, direct call, text, or email access to me for personalized advice on training, hunting strategy, or just sharpening your edge, and automatic entry into monthly gear giveaways. This is built for the guys who train for the hunt, push themselves in the off season, and want to be part of a tribe that makes them better. If you're ready for that kind of inner circle, then Team Backbone is waiting for you at backboneunlimited.com underneath our membership tab. Thanks for being here. Until next time, train harder, hunt smarter, and never settle.